We're going to do just a little demonstration of Dubb for those of you guys that are new to Dubb, that haven't had a kind of live demonstration before. We're going to do a brief presentation there, and then we're going to really quickly segue into the topic of today's training, which is with our host, Shakeel. He's going to take us through some very valuable training in leadership in the age of disruption, which is today. The things we're going through today, Shakeel is going to help us navigate these as leaders and as emerging leaders in our companies. Go ahead, Shakeel. Tell us a little bit about it. We're not going to dive in yet. Just give us a teaser.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the truth is that, disruption's been happening for years, even before the pandemic. It's just that now we're all going through it all over the world at the same time, no matter what industry you're in. And so I'm going to talk about some tried and true practices of leading through uncertainty that, the truth is we all know. We all know these things, but there's a big gap between knowing and doing oftentimes. And so today I really want to spend some time focusing on reinforcing the knowing, but giving you a few things that people can actually do to demonstrate the leadership and develop their skills there.
So powerful. And whether you're in charge of one person or yourself or a team, a large team, there's going to be times where you need to be able to take control and in a way that is effective, and you're not overbearing on your team members and even coworkers. So this training is going to apply to so many different circumstantial situations that valuable. So Ruben, let's kick it off.
Thank you, Darius. Yeah, I think that leadership has evolved and changed so much in our current climate. And there are a lot of things that we haven't yet been prepared for. And I think a lot of those are rooted in being remote, first and foremost. I recall my experiences with some great leaders that I've had the opportunity to work with and for. And a lot of it I realized was actually huddles. It was meeting in conference rooms. It was going to restaurants, sometimes even bars. And, the idea was we're physically close and we feel a camaraderie, we feel motivated. There's some team element there. And I think that obviously a lot of that has changed. And I don't think that's a temporary thing. I think that's a permanent thing. Now we realize how powerful synchronous meeting is, just like this, in a webinar, in a Zoom meeting, so many different channels now that we have to choose from. And I think that for leaders, I think that it's incredibly important to know some of the things that we can do to motivate people and to get people excited. And this is something that I think about a lot as a leader and as also a follower. I think ultimately leadership is metaphorically looking behind you and seeing if there's actually people that are following you and that are believing in you. And I think another thing that's really important from a leadership perspective is being brave, being the first person to do an effort, to do a campaign, to post that video on LinkedIn, to send someone, a video email, to trigger some sort of a campaign, to do a first webinar, to make mistakes, and then not necessarily take the credit. In fact, take the blame. That's one of the things that I've learned as a leader, as a student of leadership, is it's not about the credit, it's about taking the blame. After all, it's not about how much we know, it's about how much we care. I think that's what really connects to people. That's the idea of empathy. That's the idea of compassion. We're all going through small wars in our lives, personally, professionally. There are things on the other side of this camera that you can't see that's happening in my world. I think it's so important that leaders understand that they appreciate that they know that there's a struggle, and that in fact, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to connect and to evolve and to grow. So Shakeel, thank you so much for joining us and for being here with us. We're very excited to learn.
Yeah, me too. I always love this conversation, particularly with people that are interested in talking about this. So thanks for having me.
All right, so before we get into the training, guys, as I mentioned, we're going to do a super brief recap here of the latest and greatest with what Dubb can do for you. And then we're going to go into some very specific trainings in leadership. So one moment here, I'm going to get my screen share ready. So the first thing you're going to see is I'm going to pull up Shakeel's LinkedIn here.
Oh.
Great looking profile. And so what I want to show you guys quickly here is what Dubb does. Dubb is the ability to enable you and your business and your employees to enable the power of video messaging. And when I say video messaging, I mean, it's more than just like a video in an email. You can send video through any channel of method of communication you're already using, whether it's LinkedIn or social media of other kinds, Facebook or WhatsApp, text message, email, you name it. However you're communicating, Dubb allows you to use video through that medium. How Dubb does this is a couple of things. It is the creation, the customization, and the distribution of those videos. So I'm just going to quickly cover those three components, and you guys can get an idea of what Dubb does, and then we'll jump into the bulk of the training here. The first part we're going to talk about is the creation, which is the Chrome extension, which I'm going to show you here. And we have a mobile app. We also have a desktop app. So the idea here is one-click access to record a video wherever you are. So you're in LinkedIn, you're in your Google, your Gmail, wherever. one click. And now you can see here, I can record my screen. It can include my webcam down here. It can include my profile picture if I have bedhead or something, having a bad hair day. And all I have to do is hit record now. And it's going to be recording. In this case, it's going to record my webcam in the bottom corner and my screen at the same time. So for this video, let's say if I wanted to reach out to Shakeel, I'd say, hey, Shakeel, I just wanted to connect with you. I saw we had 26 mutual connections. So we're in the same circle. We should definitely chat. I also saw that you're impacting leadership. And so this is a big thing for us. We should definitely talk. And there we go, right? That video is uploaded. So this is what I mean by one click, or the ease of access for recording, whether it's the Chrome extension, the desktop app, or your mobile app. You can also take a video from any source, whether it's YouTube or a videographer made it for you, or it's from your cell phone, anywhere, and you can upload that to Dubb as well. So that's the first part, is the creation component. Again, one-click access wherever you are, Chrome extension, mobile app, etc. We also have direct integrations inside of your favorite tools like LinkedIn and Gmail and CRMs. You can see the little Dubb button right in here, and that'll allow me to record videos right where I'm at. So that's the other part of the creation component. Now, the next piece here is the customization. So you saw how easy it is to make a video, but now what Dubb does is it wraps this video up professionally so that, you know, it's not like going to YouTube where there's all these distractions and advertisements. It's not just a blank page where the video is the only thing on it and there's nothing else there. You can see here, this whole page got built automatically based on what Dubb can do for us. So here's the video for Shakeel. I made that in 15 seconds, it looks like. And then at the end of that, it's automatically going to play the next videos in the sequence, which in my case is
can be used to
an explainer video for what Dubb is. You can see this one's 4 minutes long. It's fully produced, has a ton of production value in there. So it's something that I couldn't produce on my own on the fly, but I'm able to get the best of both here. Something custom that I made just for Shakeel. Hey, Shakeel, you're special, and I want to create an impact and break through some noise and really get through to you. And so I created this video just for you, but I don't want to have to repeat the bulk of what I'm actually having to say. And that's where that playlist comes into play, is using the best of both worlds. Custom videos leveraged along with pre-recorded content. And you can put as many of these as you need to here. So you see testimonials comes after the explainer. So whatever you need to put in there in terms of your use case, that can be done automatically. The next part there is the call to action buttons, because when we're creating videos, there's always a really specific intention, something very specific we're trying to accomplish, whether that's to get the recipient to take a certain action or to educate them or to motivate them to do what we want them to do. And that's really what these buttons and playlists is designed to do. So these buttons can do anything you can think of in the digital space. So we can have them download an attachment, fill out a form, go to a URL, a destination of our choice. They can book a time in our calendar. They can even shoot a video of their own without having to download or sign up or install anything. So literally anything you can think of, just about you want them to do, we can set up the buttons to do so. And it happens again in a very automatic way. So those of you that saw when I created this video for Shakeel in 15 seconds, Dubb wrapped everything up here, including the watermark, the logo, the background, even this exit intent pop-up. So when I go to leave the page is when the exit intent would appear. It didn't pop up that time. It will. Anyways, so all the little elements on this page get added based on what I'm trying to accomplish. And we can also customize this page for other use cases. So if I click to this template, or preset as we call them, you can see it's going to instantly change every element on this page, the background, the videos, the buttons. So this is what customization means to Dubb. It's instantaneous and automatic. So you can completely customize your videos, making them look professional, and set them up to drive the conversions and conversations that you're looking for, all using those presets features. So it's instant. Now, cover the two parts really quickly that I was talking about: the creation component, Chrome extension, mobile app, direct integrations like in LinkedIn. And then now I've kind of covered the customization, which is all about how these videos look and feel. Now, there's one other part here I want to show you, and that is actually what the videos look like when you're sending them through. So you can see here it shows as a link, but once I've actually sent this message, it shows as a thumbnail with an animated GIF. Second. LinkedIn is, there we go. It's going to show as an animated GIF, just like this here. Got a lot of videos examples in there. So you can see that this is going to be much more interesting than like my just my face. Let me see, I'm trying to look for one of the better examples. These are all my face. So try to screen one. Here you go. So you can see this is what it looks like, that video I made for Shakeel. When I send this through email or LinkedIn, it's going to have their profile picture on it. And that's typically something much more interesting than our own face or something that they don't recognize. That's also a great example. It has her name in it. So those are some examples of how Dubb also allows you to customize what your message looks like when it's going through. So that is the customization. The last part here, which I kind of touched on a little bit, is the distribution. When we're actually ready to send these videos out, Dubb gives you the ability to put these videos into any single messaging platform you're using. So we'll start here in LinkedIn because it's open already. We talked about that. We have the direct integration there. Dubb button allows you to send your videos right through LinkedIn, whether we're in Messenger, Recruiter, Sales Navigator, you name it. There's also direct integration with tools like Gmail and Outlook and dozens of CRMs that this button works the same exact way inside your favorite tool. One click will allow you to drop anything you've recorded, any pre-recorded videos in there instantly. Now, just to briefly touch on what we're going to be covering for like leadership things later, we have things like frequently asked questions for people like admins and managers and other leaders where they can actually recycle a lot of that content. So here I have tutorial videos in a tag of mine, so I can instantly leverage anything I've pre-recorded in a folder. So this is the first part of distribution, is the direct integration with Gmail, Outlook, LinkedIn, etc. There's also universal compatibility. So I can send this video through any channel you can think of, whether it's Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp or Skype or you name it, literally. Just name the channel and we can send a video through that channel and we're gonna be able to track that video. They're gonna get the same full experience where we don't have to worry about attachment limitations or anything like that. They're gonna get the branding, the call to actions, your additional videos, etc. So
just a quick housekeeping issue here. Yeah. If you are leaving chat messages, please make sure that you're clicking the drop-down button that says to all panelists and attendees, if that's what your intention is. There's a couple of folks that have just done that to the panelists, so that's only going to be seen by us three. Make sure that attendees is in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruben. Thank you. Okay, so we were talking about the last part of the distribution here, which is the direct integration, which Gmail, Outlook, LinkedIn, CRMs, there's already a Dubb button built in. And then there's the universal method of copying and pasting this into any other channel maybe we don't have a direct integration with already, because there's thousands of, if not more, out there, tens of thousands, and we'll work with any of them. Now, besides these two methods, there's also built-in marketing automation on Dubb. So here's what that looks like. You can actually build out sequences of automatic emails or text messages to go out. Here's one such example we have. That's 4 text messages that goes out in a series automatically based on some delays that we've built. So this is the marketing automation side, and it's automatically included with Dubb. This is being sent through your own email server. So if you have a Gmail or an Outlook or any other provider, you hook it up to Dubb and we can send out video emails on your behalf in simple sequence or even complicated sequences. So we can be if-then statements, like if they watched something, if they didn't, if they clicked a button, so on and so forth. So automation or workflow building, and then also bulk sending. So we can send out video emails either one-to-one or one-to-many. You can see here's an example of one we sent to 25,000 people. And out of those 25,000, we can come and see who watched, who clicked, who watched what percentage. We can filter that specifically by the type of activity we want here. So if I click views, I can see they watched 25%, he watched 100%, really granular analytics on anything sent through Dubb. And now, regardless of the channel that you're sending it through, whether it's email, Outlook, LinkedIn, blah, 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 you can track it the same exact way. So you can see who's watching your videos, what percentage, if they're clicking on any of these buttons, basically any bit of engagement on these pages are tracked. So that is how distribution works. Now, I don't want to take too much more time in here. We can open up questions for Dubb after this. But for those of you that are new, this is what we're just talking about when we're referring to Dubb. It's really an all-in-one tool that allows you to capture, create, customize, and distribute your videos in a very effective way, specific to your business needs and goals. So that's pretty much the super fast, compact demo. Like I said, we're going to open it up for questions after. We're going to have questions. Save them for the end. Put them in the Q&A. We'll get to them. But we're going to open this up now to the topic of today's training, which is leadership in the age of disruption. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my share. And Ruben, if you want to pass it off, we're going to go straight to Shakeel, right?
Yeah, Shakeel, thank you so much. Can't wait to have you next.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm really thrilled to have this conversation here today, and great to see so many people interested. Ruben, for those people that weren't able to join, if you have friends that weren't able to join, we will be recording this, right, and sharing it, and we can offer it up afterwards to share.
You got it.
Let's just dive into this really, really important topic right now. This is something that's been interesting me for a few years, well before the pandemic. How do you lead during times of disruption? There is so much disruption happening in our lives, even before the pandemic, right? We have multiple generations in the workplace. Technology innovations have created tremendous opportunity, but also changed the way we work. The industry's upended. We've got a lot of social issues happening around the world and changing demographics. And so leaders during this time are under a great amount of pressure to connect, to drive their businesses forward. And it's just becoming even more challenging. And so I wanted to really have a chat about this today, because I think there's so much we can do to help lead our world forward, lead humanity forward, and leaders do it all. And Ruben, you added a message to one of my posts the other day: is leadership is the greatest public service. It doesn't matter what field you're in, the size of the team you're leading, even if you're not leading a team, but you're in a position of influencing others, it's the greatest public service. And so it's important for all of us to kind of get better at this. As we start our conversation, I want each of you to just think of a leader in your life, somebody that influenced you in your life. And perhaps in chat, you can type up, what are some of the characteristics of that leader that really you think impacted you? And as you carry that memory of that person and the way they impacted you, and you share those things, one of those things that I expect will resonate with you is this idea that that person made an impact on you in some way. Early in my career, my first job out of university, a vice president called me into his office. I was several levels below him, but he called me into his office and he said, my advice to you is be a sponge. Absorb everything, watch everything, listen to everybody, and take note of what you're seeing and what you're learning, the good stuff and the bad stuff. And so for 27 years since that first job, I've been doing that. And I've been reading and adding to my knowledge from the things I'm experiencing and seeing, and the experience I'm doing myself as a leader. And I'm going to share some of that with you because it's all really relevant right now. And so I'm grateful for that leader in my life that gave me that single piece of advice, because I probably wouldn't have thought of that idea of watching, learning, listening, and writing things down as I'm experiencing them. So leaders are in a position to make an impact based on the way they help you, the values they pass on, the characteristics they demonstrate. And the way I think of impact in the most natural, raw form is the idea of a drop or a pebble in the middle of the water. And you see that pebble creating these ripples. And so the most powerful leaders, the most influential leaders in your life, I would suggest, are probably those ones that you saw create those ripples. They created ripples in the people around them, in the teams and the organizations around them. And those people that they impacted, those ripples actually went on to impact other people and created more ripples. And so the best leaders are really good at creating the ripples in the water in their teams, in their communities, in their environments. Now, this is where disruption comes in, right? It's disruptive world, a lot of volatility. And so the waters aren't calm. And when the waters aren't calm, it's very challenging to create ripples. It's very challenging as a leader to impact people when there's so much kind of disruption going on. When you think about disruption, I want you to think about these four letters. The short form is VUCA. We are living in a world of VUCA. Some of you may know what this is, some of you may not. But in the 80s, a group of students at the US Army College came up with this term VUCA, which stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And those four words, they suggested were going to describe the nature of the world post-Cold War, the nature of the world in which we are making decisions. And I'm sure that you will all agree that we are living now in a world of volatility where the pace of change is really fast, uncertainty where the outcomes of our decisions are not clear. We don't know exactly what's going to happen with every step, every take, or every decision that we make. The world is complex, meaning there's so many different variables. It's hard to get to the root cause of an issue because there's so many things impacting everything around us. And ambiguity, there's so much information coming at us, it's really hard to make sense of it all. Now, this has been going on for years, well before the pandemic and COVID, right? So how do we manage this? Because the truth is that a study was done back in 2015, and even at that time, only 18% of leaders felt that they were capable of leading in this kind of world, in this VUCA world. And the reason for that is that our education system and the way we've grown up and been raised actually doesn't prepare us for disruptive worlds and the skill sets we need to manage these fast changing and uncertain, complex and ambiguous times. But that doesn't mean we can't develop those skills, right? In fact, one of the very first things I want to talk to you about is this idea that we are all constantly evolving and learning. And part of being able to evolve and learn is just setting the mindset of recognizing that we are able to evolve and learn. And so what I want to offer you here is a set of practices, behaviors, mindsets that I have collected over my career and the experiences I've had, the people I've seen, and the things I've read and studied. And these are likely not the only skills that will help you in a disruptive world, but these are the ones I've identified that have worked for me and have worked for people that I've watched very closely. So the first one is the idea of a growth mindset. A lot of people are talking about growth mindset here. I want to make it really simple. A growth mindset says you are able to learn, to unlearn, and relearn. What does that mean? That means that you have a view on the world that says, just because I've been successful at doing something in the past, or just because I failed at doing something in the past, that doesn't mean that those things will be repeated in the future. If I was successful in the past doing a certain thing, it doesn't mean that I will be successful doing the same thing in the future. And if I have failed at something in the past, it doesn't mean that the experience was wasted. I can draw something from that experience to shift and change the way I do things in the future. And this idea of growth mindset is not just something that we individually carry with us to continue to learn, to grow on a daily basis. It's about demonstrating that to your organization and people. So first aspect of leading through disruption is this idea of constantly being aware that you are learning every single day. You are unlearning things from the past that work, that might not work in the future, and you are relearning, and you are demonstrating that and setting an example for your people in doing that. The next thing I want to talk about is customer-centric design. Customer-centric design, we all know the term customer-centric, focus on the needs of the customer. But how often do we really actually practice it? I would suggest most of the time we go through this world thinking about what it is that we want from something and trying to figure out how to persuade other people to want the same thing. If you're selling a product, you have a product, your single mission in life is to find a way to get other people interested in that product. Customer-centric design thinking suggests that you not only focus all of your attention on what your customers' needs are, regardless of what the product is you sell, focusing on what's happening in their life, not just now, today, but anticipating how you're seeing their lives changing in the future. And then working backwards to say, what is it that I can bring? What are the relevant elements of my product? Sure, but also my skills, my capabilities, my values, my behaviors that I can help them with what's changing. Customer-centric design thinking also suggests that you're always trying new things, because you can't really be 100% certain that what you're going to bring is going to work. You always have to be gathering information about what your customers are needing now and what you think they might be needing in the future, and experimenting to offer solutions to those problems. The third one is business acumen. It sounds obvious, but recognizing during times of disruption, it's very easy to get distracted by shiny objects and by new trends and new technologies. Business acumen suggests that you always have to be focused on what is the return on the investment that we're making right now. Time, money, attention, energy. If we are doing something without a clear expectation of what the financial return is, what is the impact of what we're doing, we are going to spin our wheels. And we are responsible as leaders for teams, communities, organizations. And if we're not leading organizations with a real clear view of how we are actually impacting the financials of that organization, then we're actually not going to create sustainable organization. So focusing on the developing business acumen is critical, particularly during times of disruption. Moving to self-reflection is the regular practice of looking at the things you do in a particular day, in the moment, after the moment, and asking yourselves the tough questions. What could I have done better? What did I learn from that experience? What will I do tomorrow? Are my goals right? Do I have the right people around me? Am I sending the right message? The idea of every single day reflecting on your day's experiences and identifying and writing down what are those things that are working, not working, and what are those things you're going to change. Critical during times of disruption. The next one is empathetic communication. For me, the simple description here is working with an open heart. Is accepting during times of disruption, during times of change, your people are having a difficult time. For some, it's an innovative time, right? You've created a spark that is really driving them to be innovative and creative. But for a lot of people, it's a time of anxiety, and change, no matter how small the change, can be difficult. It's empathizing, not sympathizing, not feeling sorry for people, but it's empathizing and trying to understand that even though you might see a future, or even though you might be excited by the innovation, not to judge the other person because they're not there yet, but empathizing with where they are, meeting them with where they are, and holding them with an open heart, and expecting you'll get pushback, and not being upset by that pushback because you're able to place yourself in what the other person is experiencing. The last one that I'm going to dive into with some detail here and give you some real specific practices is this whole area of leader character. A lot of people believe that character is something you're born with. Either your parents built it in you when you were being raised, or they didn't. Actually, character is one of those things that can be developed, just like everything else on this picture. Character is something that with proper attention and focus, we can actually build up on. And out of all the elements on this, I would say that leader character right now, with what we're going through in the world, is probably the number one thing that we should be spending our attention on. And so I want to walk you through about leader character and what I've learned from what I've seen, experienced, and share some really straightforward practices that you can take forward into your daily life. So the first exposure I ever had to the idea of leader character is from an author, Jim Collins. He's my intellectual superhero. In early 2000s, when I was taking my very first leadership role in the transportation industry, our head of HR gave us this book. And there's a lot in there, and I won't bore you with all of it. It's a great book. I would recommend reading it. The book is called Good to Great. But there was something that really resonated with me in that book early in my leadership career. The idea that as a leader, you are trying to balance two things: personal humility, modesty, adherence to a broader purpose, not just your own agenda, right? Caring, nurturing, and at the same time, professional will, a drive for excellence, an unwavering resolve, a push forward, courage, and accountability. And the way he describes this, and I'll give you this image that is really helpful to me. A level 5 leader, a leader with high character, has a window on one side and a mirror on the other. And when things go wrong, they look in the mirror and they say, what could I have done differently to change this outcome? What can I learn from this? But when things go right, when there's successes, they look into the window and they look for all the factors and all the people that they can give credit to. Away from them, but out there. Who was responsible for the success? And who should be getting credit? And so think of that image when you think about high leader character, balancing the personal humility and giving credit to others, looking out the window, and the professional will. Look in the mirror to focus on what can I get better at doing and driving hard to improve those things. So I just want to provide that as a backdrop. It's something I experienced in the early 2000s that really stuck with me, and I want to share that image with you. But I want to really dive into the focus of where we can work on leader character. In 2008, we all experienced a financial crisis, right? This is another one of those events in life that kind of brought the world together because we were all experiencing it at the same time. At the time of the financial crisis, there were 3 researchers that I know that basically went out into the world. They traveled all over the world and they interviewed and did roundtables with CEOs and executives to uncover the truth of what went wrong. This financial crisis was preventable. It was actually man-made. What went wrong in leadership that resulted in this financial crisis? And together, after thousands of hours of conversations, interviews, and roundtables, they came up with a framework, which they called the Leader Character Framework. And this is a very powerful framework. And what it suggests is that the biggest failure in the whole area of the financial crisis was a failure in character. And character, as I said before, people didn't believe you could actually define it. It was either something you had or you didn't have. But character they defined as a set of values, traits, and behaviors that carries through time, through circumstances, through decisions, through changes in the environment. And what this model suggests is that true character comes from balancing all of these elements. So let me explain to you, for example. High leader character comes from balancing courage, accountability, and drive with humility and humanity and collaboration. It's not one set or the other set. It is all of it. So just think for a moment. When you've got a leader that's very heavy in courage and drive, but very weak on humility and humanity, what do you end up having? I mean, I would suggest that's some of what led to the financial crisis. You have individuals that are bold, drive for success, but success at all costs. Without the balance of humility, being self-aware, being reflective, being modest, to balance against the drive and the courage, results in bad decisions that are irresponsible. And without humanity, you're making decisions to benefit yourself and not considering the greater impact on society? Justice. Are you being fair? Are you being equitable? Are you creating a collaborative culture? Do you take ownership? It's back to that looking in the mirror, accountability. Integrity. Just imagine for a second, if you have somebody that has integrity, on the surface you say, that's a really good thing. I want people that have integrity. But if you have too much integrity without being able to balance collaboration and humility, what do you have? You have a person that's dogmatic. You have a person that clings to their own view of the world and isn't open-minded. And so yes, they have integrity, but integrity to their view of things, and isn't open to flex and change and taking other perspectives. So this is the Ivey Leader Character Framework. Now there's a lot of words here, but what I want to dive into next is breaking these words down and identifying what are some specific things that you can do in action. And so let's go through this with some level of detail and really talk about what it could mean to you. And I'm hoping during this time, please do, if you have questions, put them in the Q&A and we will get to them. If you have comments and you want to put some things in chat, please do, and let other people benefit from what you're experiencing here. Just take a minute, not even a minute, take 15 seconds just to kind of just absorb this slide. One of the things I've learned is you can't talk to a slide and have people read it at the same time because they don't get either message. So just take 15 seconds and just look at the words on this slide. And maybe take a minute here to just reflect yourself on your own conduct. As I describe these things, think about how well you do each of these. So transcendence, right? The idea of being aspirational, being purpose-driven, inspiring your team. Do you demonstrate a sense of purpose? In every conversation you have, in every meeting you have, and every Zoom call you have, is it clear to your team what your why is? What's the broader mission, the motivation? You know, we get so caught up in actually the transaction and moving forward and doing the thing that needs to get done that sometimes we don't take the time to think about what it is that is the real underlying purpose of what we're doing and why. So if you have your purpose worked out, fantastic. You need to start sharing that. You need to share that with your people. If you don't have your purpose, there's some work to be done. Some work to figure out what it is that is your why. And there's some great tools and practices out there. We can talk about that in a bit. The next one is drive. Some people think during this time of disruption, when everybody's under pressure, people are stretched, that you shouldn't be pushing for excellence. Yes, you have to be patient and understanding, but you need to still expect high quality work and be ambitious in what your expectations are. People still do want to rise to the challenge. As a leader, during times of disruption, you have to set a high bar. Now, you should be there to support people and encourage people to work together to achieve that high bar, but you have to set a high bar. Imagine a situation where you have a leader that is all about humility, humanity, and just being nice to everybody and being empathetic, but without drive. You'll end up losing motivation on your team. People want to progress. And so drive and making sure that when you are with your team and you're communicating to them, that you make it clear that you are expecting excellence, that you want to be ambitious in what you're trying to achieve, and creating conversations about how you can drive that achievement and ambition on your teams. Collaboration. We know with collaboration, it's about working together, getting on the same page, sharing talents. But a very simple practice I'll suggest to you. Invite constructive dissent. Proactively ask people to share the things that could go wrong. Because in any team environment, there are people that have a view that is opposite to yours or to other team members. And they may hold back because they don't want to be the voice of dissent. But collaboration is about hearing from all the voices. So at your next conversation, at your next meeting, invite people, create a safe place for people to disagree constructively, but allowing people to voice their concerns when something is different than what the party line is. Humanity, just being available, right? I mean, particularly now where you're not in the same physical place as your teams and with your coworkers, is just making it known how to reach you, making it known that when you're having a difficult time, that you can be available. Simple, just to say that to people is powerful. Humility, really easy, right? Looking out the window. No matter how big or small somebody's accomplishment is, acknowledging it to them, telling them that you did a really good job here, being specific as to what they did well, not just a general great work. Great work, but why do you think it was great work? Giving people recognition in front of others. Integrity. So we talked earlier about integrity being not this dogmatic adherence to your own views. It's also about transparency. Integrity is about explaining to people what is the rationale behind the decision. So imagine during these times that you need your team to do something. You know, maybe you need them to do it fast and you just need to give an order. Go do this. Integrity is about explaining the why. Taking the time to build a loyalty to the logic of your decision. It's just not just about being transparent, it's about developing your leaders, your future leaders. It's about explaining to them how you've made decisions. And then guess what? When you combine that integrity with this collaboration, inviting constructive dissent, when you've explained your decision, you open up the door for people to challenge your assumptions that led to your decision. So being transparent and explaining your decisions opens up the opportunity for you to grow yourself and learn and think about things differently. Temperance. Are you calm in the face of crisis? Now, sometimes we think of crisis being, oh my God, the walls are falling down. But there's little crises every day, right? An email gets sent out where there's a grammatical error or a link that is broken. And from a micro perspective, that might seem like a crisis, but it's staying calm when those things happen. Not that you don't have to fix them, you do, but it's staying calm. And it's not just about staying calm by not raising your voice and getting angry. Watch the facial expression. Think about how your nonverbal communication comes through on your reaction to this challenge. Justice. When you observe values being breached, either your own or the organization's, when you observe somebody that perhaps was mistreated in a way, do you speak up? And sometimes even in a leadership role, it's sometimes you say, you know what, I don't want to fight this battle right now. Other things to work on. But your leadership has demonstrated as much by what you say as what you do not say. So when you see values being breached, trusting that gut instinct to speak up and say, no, this is wrong. Accountability, simple. Admit your mistakes. Show the vulnerability. Be honest about them. Put them out there as learning opportunities for other people. And finally, courage. Courage to accept the fact that things are difficult. To accept the fact that maybe we don't have all the knowledge, all the experience we need to make it through this time. Knowing that things are uncertain, seeking information that might even reinforce how difficult things are. Because once you can face the difficulty is when you can move on through the next step, which is moving forward. You can't move forward unless you face the difficult stuff. Now, I'm hoping this has given you some very specific things that you can think about doing with your next engagements with your teams. Some very specific things that you can do differently. And it would be great if in chat you can add your comments on what some of those things are. And in your Q&A, if you want a bit more clarity on any of these things, please type them and we'll have a conversation in a minute. As we wrap up, a great analogy is a picture to carry in your head. A professor that I know very well, great affection for, Martha Mesnetsky, has given me this great analogy. She goes, leader character right now through the times of disruption is about being Hercules and Buddha at the same time, right? You think of Hercules, he's mythical god, demigod actually, that was a hero for humanity, that faced challenges, that overcame them and led from the front. And then you think of Buddha, a bit softer, nurturing, empathetic, self-reflective, believed that everybody had their answers within them, and you had to help find that within them. So leadership during times of disruption means that you have to be both Hercules, courageous, driving direction, pushing for excellence, taking accountability, and Buddha, empathetic, supporting learning, supporting mistakes, allowing people to self-reflect, self-reflecting yourself. You have to do that at the same time. You have to flex between the two and know what's right in a particular situation. So as we come to a close, I'm going to ask you to reflect for a second and maybe even type it. Are you naturally more of a Hercules or more of a Buddha? Answering that question honestly is, one, demonstrating character, but two, it's making the recognition that there's another side of your leadership that you might need to develop. If you are more Buddha, what can you do in your leader character to develop more Hercules? And in fact, what is it that you actually need to be Hercules about? If you are Hercules and you're driving and pushing for excellence all the time, what is it that you need to be more Buddha about? And writing that down and reflecting on how you can change that going forward. The leader that impacted you, the one you came up with at the top of the hour, what is it that they did? Were they more Hercules or Buddha? And what is it that made them that? Or were they both? And is that why they were impactful to you? And last question I want to ask you, and Darius, the demo you gave us up front really gave me an idea. A challenge during this time, how do you communicate character as a leader in a virtual world where you aren't able, as Ruben talked about, huddling together, getting together live? How do you communicate character in a virtual world? And Darius, using those video tools, I thought, wouldn't it be a really interesting idea to actually, a regular practice of sending messages, emails to your team, in whether it could be in Slack, I guess, it could be in any sort of channel you want, but actually authentic video. So when you are communicating a decision to your team of something that needs to be prioritized over the next little while, communicating a direction like a Hercules, if you do it in a video, and in that video you communicate the logic of why you're asking them to do this thing, and you actually deliver the empathy that shows that it might be hard for some of you, but you're here as a leader to support, and you're available, and you're worried about this happening, right? There's some risks that you're feeling vulnerable about. You could take an hour and write an email to communicate all those things, and you likely won't because you don't want to put it in writing, and you're not even sure it'll get read. But if you did a quick 2-minute video to your team communicating a decision, or if you did a 2-minute video just checking in with everybody and wanting them to know that you're thinking about them, a 2-minute video to say something about giving somebody credit or recognition for a really great accomplishment, I think that's a really powerful way to communicate character in this world right now, is authentic connection with your face, your words, your emotions. I think it's a really powerful way to use Dubb for that purpose. I don't know, Darius, am I on the right track here?
Absolutely, Shakeel. I was going to say we actually have some of our larger teams, some of our larger organizations who have these leadership roles where their CEO, CMO, their C-suite executives have Dubb accounts for this exact purpose. Because they're not prospecting, they're not making 50 videos a day, sending them out to people, and they're not doing like the marketing role where it's sending out to thousands. They're communicating internally with their teams through their Microsoft Teams, through their Slack channels, through emails. And they're creating videos exactly what you're describing there, where they're instructing their teams of updates. One leader can, instead of what you just described, writing an hour-long email and then passing it to someone to proofread, they can create one minute video, one minute video, and then now send those videos to the separate teams and be a power house, like kind of leadership role in those
absolutely.
things.
Well, we know the impact the videos have on LinkedIn, and we see, we watch those videos and we click on them. It's like using that in your day-to-day connection with your people, with your teams, regardless of where they are in the world. It makes it much more authentic. I think it's a really cool way to go.
Absolutely. Our leadership that has adopted this, they have so much fun with it because, it ends up being one of their favorite tools. Like we have an advertisement, actually, one of our leaders, Jason, from a lighting company, he used it so often that for like everything, his whole business used it, and he liked to use it internally to communicate a lot. So those stories of our leaders using the tool, it's always fun, because it's not about the sale, it's not about the marketing side, of it, it's about the leadership, it's about communicating them as the personality to their team, which especially in this environment now, it's so much harder to do because we're not in the same office, we're not in the same physical location.
Absolutely, very good. I'm gonna wrap up with one thing, and I do want to make sure there's time for questions, either for Dubb or for myself. I want to just put a special offer out there, Darius. I talked about leader character being something that you can work on. So I have access to a really cool leader character insight assessment. So it's a self-assessment, a set of questions that will help you figure out what are the areas of leadership that you need to work on to strengthen the way your character comes through. What are you already really strong on? And what are some practices you can do to get stronger? It's a bit of a dashboard on strengthening your character.
This is so awesome.
Yeah, it's really good. It's self-reflective. It's some straightforward questions that you can ask. There's a 360 version of them, but I've got a special deal from the testing company on the self-reflection version. And I'm happy to have people go through that assessment and book a 1 hour one-on-one debrief to kind of make sense of the assessment and provide some coaching. Like I can help people identify what are the 2 or 3 things you can work on in the next, 2 weeks to actually demonstrate the character and strengthen your leadership during these times of disruption. And I've got 10 spots available, and the pricing is there, $250 US or $350 Canadian for that package. My email address, if people want to reach out to me and talk about this, subject line Dubb offer, I'd love to have a conversation with them and provide that support.
This is so powerful, guys. Like, when you want to pay a consultant to come and look at your business from the top down and give you action items, that's what this is, but for your personal character as a leader. So this is extremely valuable. I mean, this is the way to actually quantify all the things discussed in this training, to figure out really where you're at and direct action items to take you to the next level by Shakeel himself, which is, the assessment's one thing to tell you where you're at, but then having the items on top of that to actually help you grow from where you're at.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've done it myself and it's been really helpful to me. So, and the last thing, I just want to do a bit of a shout out, if it's okay, because Ruben, who is at the top of the hour here, I've got a podcast called Navigating Disruption. And I actually interviewed Ruben. It was a great episode, and I'll be putting it out there in the market the next little while. So if you enjoyed this conversation, I interview leaders about the way they're facing disruption. How are they leading through it? And Ruben is one of the people I've picked to interview in. So look out for that episode. And with that, thank you for this time. Happy to answer questions.
Yeah, so we'll be sharing the link to that to the podcast as well. I think we'll put it in the recording notification. Okay. So this is awesome. Two things, guys. The podcast where we get to hear our leader Ruben speak about leadership in the disruptive age, and how specifically we here at Dubb are overcoming some of these things. So It's a really cool insight to the team. And also the offer of Shakeel, this guy here, this one taking you through the assessment and the coaching. Again, it's that the race car builder for yourself. You get the mechanic to come in, diagnose your machine, your machine, the most important machine you can have, and help supercharge it for performance. So here's the spot. We'll also be sharing this as well in the email, but make sure you guys take this down now. Write the email. We have it in there. Perfect. And all questions come to there. And wait, that's the LinkedIn one. Ina, can you also put Shakeel's email in there in case they want to copy and paste it from there?
Yeah, I actually did that, so it's in there.
Oh, sorry, I missed it.
Yeah, and then also Shakeel, there's actually 1 or 2 questions. If you could take a quick peek at those.
Yeah, sure. Let me just
Okay,
stop my share.
Yeah.
Okay, great. You got that one in there, Ruben. Good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So there's a question here around looking at systemic biases, processes typical in many organizations that don't necessarily reward many people when they exhibit these qualities. In fact, the Lorraine, thank you for asking that question. In the research they did to develop that model, they identified exactly that point. The elements of character that were the elements that would protect organizations from doing things like creating the financial crisis of 2008 were exactly those things that were not rewarded in the organization. So when you look at performance reviews and you look at the way people are celebrated in organizations, you celebrate people that had a successful quarter, right? In a sales organization, the people that actually win the President's Club Award are those people that had the highest achievement of their sales target, the driven people. You don't talk about the character they demonstrated in achieving that. You don't talk about the humility and the collaboration and all of those elements of how they achieve that result. And when you promote people that have had a track record of success. You don't promote people and say, wow, this person was really empathetic and this person was really nurturing. And man, one of the most humble leaders I've ever met. And so, Lorraine, you're absolutely right. This is a real big issue in organizations. And it's something that it only changes when leaders actually take a holistic view. And when leaders start to recognize people for those empathetical skills and the collaboration skills and the transcendence and the calmness. And you encourage that behavior and you celebrate those successes is when you start seeing a shift in balance. There's a whole field of work around changing performance reviews to be much more balanced. Happy to talk to you offline, Lorraine, about that. But that is a really important recognition. Thanks for making that out. At that point. And then Aleem, he just said thank you. So I was happy to have that. Aleem, thank you for joining us. I'm really glad you're able to be here.
Great question, Lorraine. Very cool. All right. So let's see. I know that we talked about everything we were going to cover pretty much. We did a little bit of Dubb training in the beginning. Again, you guys have any questions or anything about that, we can always take that further. We provided some very valuable insight about leader character and leadership in the age of disruption today. Again, we've got another minute or two left here to ask questions. So do it. It's the last chance to ask him live. You guys can also follow up via email with any personal things.
There is a question in the chat that I picked up that just came through from Niraj Monga. By the way, I interviewed him for a podcast. There's an episode out there with him as well. Nice. Are we trying to create more spiritual organizations? I guess you can view it that way. Some of what I talked about might look at it. I don't think of spiritual as being religious. I think of spiritual as being tied to a higher purpose. And do I think we should be creating, this is speak for myself, do I think we should be creating organizations where everybody in the organization is tied to a higher purpose? Absolutely. Yes. You'll get the best out of people. You'll get them to give to each other because we're unified by not their own department's goals, but the purpose of the organization. So absolutely, Niraj, I think yes.
Yeah, so cool. I mean, when going on to the spiritual side of it, it's just words basically. Like spiritual, religious, everyone's kind of got their own definitions. Yeah. But I think in spiritualism are a lot of those qualities that we were talking about that aren't exactly the ones that are typically rewarded, right? Exactly. And it's so important because, look what happens when we only reward that one side of it. So,
Exactly right.
man, yeah, that's such a problem to tackle. It's interesting. We gotta talk about that, Ruben. How to reward activities other than our immediately justifiable ROI stuff, right? It's so easy to do those, right? Like I do that all the time. Every time I see something ROI positive, I'm like, high five. Yeah, it's so easy to identify, but the other things aren't as easy to identify. We just don't have the frameworks or something set up to reward those things. So that's something I'm taking away from this.
Future topic. Great point. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you guys again. Have a wonderful day.
Take care. Bye.